The Minnesota Wild have relieved head coach Bruce Boudreau of his duties. We're going to discuss his time in Minnesota and who's taken over coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, the changes in Minnesota continue to happen. Of course, we saw the big trade with the Wild and Penguins the other day with Jason Zucker being traded to the Penguins. And as I mentioned in that video, I really thought that signaled the beginning of other substantial changes in Minnesota. And I kind of hoped in a way it led them down the path of heading into a rebuild to something I felt this team was needed for some time. So now they've continued the changes as GM Bill Guerin announced today that they've relieved head coach Bruce Boudreau of his duties. Now, many expected Bruce Boudreau not to return next year as head coach because he was in the final year of his contract, but there was, I believe, another option within his contract to remain on with the organization in some kind of different capacity. But Boudreau will leave the Wild and likely seek employment elsewhere. Now, obviously, the Minnesota Wild have gone through a lot of ups and downs, and I really don't think you can pin most of the failures on Bruce Boudreau. I think Boudreau is an excellent coach. He's had a lot of success, coached a lot of teams to some good regular season records, some playoff success. He's always had a hard time getting his teams over the hump and getting that Stanley Cup. But really, if you look at what's gone on, especially since he's been head coach, they've gone through multiple GMs. A lot of the things that were going on under Paul Fenton and now under a new GM again with Bill Guerin. I think it was really a matter of time before Guerin made the change and Boudreau was on his way out. But I really don't know if we can pin much of the blame here on him for their lack of success in the last few years. Taking over now is Dean Evason, who will be interim head coach for the remainder of the season, and a full-time head coaching decision will be made during the offseason. Now, in case you're not familiar with Dean Evason, he played in the NHL for quite a long time. He served as an assistant coach on multiple occasions. He was with the Capitals for, I think it was 7 or 8 years. He was a head coach at the American Hockey League for 5 or 6 years as well. And then now he's been working with the Wild for the past couple of years as well. So he's got a ton of experience, former player, lots of coaching. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here, if he can help get the Wild into a playoff spot. They're really not all that far out of a wild card spot, but I'm guessing that GM Bill Guerin and ownership at this point probably don't have a ton of confidence that they're going to get there. And I think this is going to signal even more changes between now and the February 24th trade deadline, because there's been lots of rumors around other players on the Wild possibly being moved here as well. So, of course, Boudreau was originally hired back in 2016. He leaves the team with a record of 158, 110, and 35. The first couple of years behind the bench, he led them to the playoffs with a first-round exit, which is something we saw far too long in Minnesota. They were a playoff team for quite a stretch of time, but really never got over that hump, never made a deep playoff run. And even though all those years ago when they signed Ryan Suter and Zach Parise, they were hoping to bring the Stanley Cup back to the state of hockey, they've yet to be able to do that, and they haven't really come all that close. And in my opinion, like I said, I think they kind of need to make some more changes, go through a bit of a rebuild here, and continue on getting towards younger, faster, and more skilled, which is the way to go right now. Trading Zucker certainly opened up a roster spot as well to hopefully bring over youngster Kirill Kaprizov, who's having a dominant year in the KHL right now. So he likely comes over, signs with Minnesota, and hopefully plays next season. And hopefully Kaprizov and the other moves that Guerin makes can inject some more youth into this organization and get things back on track here over the next little while. But let me know what you think of Bruce Boudreau being fired as Minnesota head coach. Do you see him landing somewhere else? That's 8 head coaches now that have been terminated during this NHL season. That's quite a few. Obviously, some of these guys have landed back on their feet and already got new NHL employment, and certainly more are going to be continuing to look for jobs. I know a lot of them will be linked to the Seattle head coaching vacancy, as they don't have a head coach as of yet, and they don't really need to for a little while. So let me know, where do you think Bruce Boudreau lands as he continues to coach in the NHL? Where might be a good fit for him in the future? And do you see Dean Evason taking over on a permanent basis, or do you think the Wild will go down a different route for a head coach in the offseason? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. We'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.